let's talk about Ted Lasso, the show that took the world by storm and did the impossible. It put Apple TV on the map, and it got Americans interested in soccer. The story of Ted, an American football coach traveling to England to coach a British football team, was pretty much universally beloved, and yet, when the much-anticipated second season came out, it was not universally beloved. In fact, I know a few people in my personal life who absolutely adored the first season, but who never bothered to finish the second. They just fell out of love with the show, and I have to admit that my relationship with the show took a similar journey. And so today I'd like to examine Ted Lasso, figure out why the first season worked so well, and try to uncover the reasons why the show's second season felt so different and failed to engage people in quite the same way. So let's start with this. 1. Setups and payoffs. The first season of Ted Lasso is possibly one of the most tightly written seasons in television history, certainly among comedies. Everything has a purpose, with each episode, each scene containing setups and payoffs. It is a jam-packed show. Just to pick out one episode to illustrate this point, here, in the season's first episode, Ted and his assistant coach, Coach Beard, are flying to England to begin their stint coaching AFC Richmond. Obviously, this scene exists to explain who Ted Lasso is, who Coach Beard is, and what their relationship to one another is. And we get that, sure, but we also get details like Coach Beard reading not one but two books about football at the same time. So immediately we understand that Coach Beard is trying his best to be prepared, and that he's maybe a little eccentric reading two books at once. Meanwhile, Ted has brought a Jack Kerouac book, The Dharma Burns. This tells us that he's not too interested in the mechanics of how the game he's about to coach works, but that he is someone who is very intelligent and who's interested in philosophy, reading a semi-obscure book about Zen Buddhism and the Beat Generation. This also foreshadows how Ted will end up coaching his team by giving them books to read 2 episodes later. We get the setup for a bet between Coach Beard and Ted that will pay off almost 10 minutes later. And we get this meeting with a random fan who will in fact turn out to be a recurring background character. And we establish how Ted relates to fans of AFC Richmond and members of the local community. Also, we get this little moment where Ted looks at his phone and we see an image of a woman and child that won't be explained until later. And of course, once they get off the plane, we meet their driver, Ollie, who anyone who's seen the first season knows will end up playing a small but crucial role in the development of this season. One scene, so many setups, and this is basically true of the entire 10-episode first season of the show. There is an enormous attention to detail in pretty much everything. While making this video, I just noticed this stylistic little transition between scenes. You don't have to do something like that. I didn't notice it the first 3 or 4 times I watched this episode, but it's there just because it adds a little bit of extra quality. Oh, and incidentally, the scene that they're transitioning to contains an explanation of the history of the stadium, which will establish the haunting subplot that occurs 5 episodes later, which will in turn set in motion an inspirational turn which forms the backbone of the season's final 3 episodes. You could watch this show over and over again and notice new connections every time. It's amazing. There is an old Disney expression called plussing. This is the idea that once you've finished a scene or an attraction or any idea, you want to keep plussing it, making it extra better, adding a little bit of extra quality. And with Ted Lasso, it feels like they finished writing season 1, took a step back, and went, alright, it works, now let's make it even better. They seem to have found tiny nooks and crannies where they could shove a bit more detail, a bit more character, a bit more humor, a bit more plot. If a character appears in episode 10, maybe they could be established a few episodes earlier. If a character does something in episode 9, could we foreshadow it in episode 3? This show is jam-packed with setups.
He thinks he's mad now. Wait till we win him over. He'll be furious.
And Payoffs.
Fuck!
Setups.
You know what the happiest animal on earth is? It's a goldfish.
And Payoffs.
I think we should all be a goldfish.
Setups.
You got some kind of food or something that just teleports you right back home, make you feel all warm and fuzzy?
And Payoffs.
Barbecue sauce.
And this makes it so rewarding to watch and rewatch. I mean, just look at this little nonverbal exchange that Ted and Coach Beard have. It's subtle, it's small, it seems so natural, but it's not accidental. You don't shoot this from two different angles by accident. You have to decide to do it. You have to plan it. Is it necessary? No, but it makes the show just that much better. Incidentally, this is also the scene that establishes the fizzy water joke that will be the final gag of the whole season and foreshadows the major episode 7 revelation about Ted having panic attacks. And you could even read into Coach Beard's reactions to Ted's ignorance about the game that maybe, just maybe, Beard is frustrated with Ted, something that will bubble up multiple times in the coming episodes. It also shows that even though he's got feelings, he's not expressing them outwardly, something that will become one of Coach Beard's biggest character flaws and a big issue in his relationship with Ted. I could do this all day, but I'm going to stop here because I just wanted to establish that I am a Ted Lasso fan and that I really do love this show. I say all of this to soften the blow now when I tell you that I really, really, really hated Ted Lasso's second season. So, let's talk about that. 2. What went wrong? Let's start with this. The second season of Ted Lasso is less focused than the first. This is objectively true. In fact, I can prove it because after the whole 10-episode second season had been broken by the writer's room, Apple TV went ahead and ordered 2 more episodes, and so the writers had to come up with 2 entire episodes that they could slot in that wouldn't impact the continuity of the other 10, which meant that they couldn't push the narrative forward in any way. They had to exist in their own little bubbles, apart from the rest of the season, stalling the season's momentum and just diverting things. And while standalone episodes can be great, see my multiple videos celebrating the Orville, this meant that for these 2 episodes, you could have no setups, no payoffs, no nothing. If you've seen Season 2, you can probably guess which episodes they are. It's the Christmas episode and the one where we follow Coach Beard for a bizarre night on the town. And it's not like these episodes are bad necessarily, though they're also not the season's strongest, but Season 2 of Ted Lasso only has 12 episodes, and now 1/6 of them are, by definition, unnecessary. For a show that ran such a tight ship in Season 1, that is not an insubstantial thing. But even outside those 2 examples, the other episodes of Ted Lasso's second season are just individually longer and more bloated, ranging in time from 30 minutes to 50 minutes in length. Meanwhile, episodes from Season 1 range from 30 minutes to 32 minutes. It was just a tighter show all around, and while it's hard to demonstrate the absence of something, this season is also a lot less dense than the first one. The subtle setups that would get payoffs several episodes later, there were a lot fewer of them here. And those little details, like the subtle looks that characters gave one another to indicate something brewing under the surface, yeah, not really as prevalent. In many ways, it was simply a broader show, more brash, more loud, more cartoonish. Actually, literally cartoonish. But apart from those obvious examples of the show getting more cartoonish, the acting also started to get broader. Characters start breaking the fourth wall and talking to camera. The cute little non sequiturs from Coach Beard? Well, here's a whole episode where he does pratfalls, dons a goofy accent, and generally behaves, well, like a wacky character from a TV show. Just to pick a random example, here's a comically over-the-top rich guy from Ghana who lands a helicopter on the field, knows Banksy, hires an entire museum's worth of actors, and throws a temper tantrum when he doesn't get his way. This would have had no place in Season 1, but it's par for the course in Season 2. We are just watching a very different show, but that's just the tone. What about the story? Well, narratively, the show also had much clearer arcs in Season 1. That was about Ted moving to a new country, learning how to coach a new sport, learning how to be away from his family. It was about Rebecca working through her feelings of anger and hurt at her ex-husband, recognizing the ways in which she was lashing out at those around her, and apologizing. It was about Roy Kent accepting the end of his athletic career, and about Jamie learning to be less self-centered. And of course, it's about Keely coming into her own as she embraces her ambitions, decides what she truly wants out of life, and goes for it. What then is the second season about? Well, the team wants to win a bunch of matches so that they can secure a promotion in the league. Ted has panic attacks and sees a therapist. Roy learns how to be a coach and encounters relationship problems with Keely. Rebecca and Sam flirt on an anonymous dating site and then decide to date. Jamie works to break free from his abusive father. A lot of stuff happens in the show's second season, but it doesn't really build. Things occur one after the other, and those things on their own are often interesting, certainly, but there aren't these strong narrative through lines that defined the first season. All of this explains why I liked Season 2 a little less than Season 1, but it doesn't explain why I really reacted so negatively towards it. So let's talk about the one character who I haven't mentioned yet. Yeah, let's talk about Nate. 3. Nate the Great. The character of Nate begins the series as a put-upon equipment manager for AFC Richmond, disrespected and bullied by those around him. Over the course of the first season, he reacts positively to Ted's kindness for him, and after the team stops bullying him, Nate seems to come into his own. He contributes plays to the team, joins a group called the Diamond Dogs with Ted, Coach Beard, and Higgins, and is eventually promoted to coach. And then, well, things start to get pretty weird in Season 2. Let's cut right to the chase. Nate becomes a bully. Not just that, but an entitled, abusive, manipulative jackass of a character. This kind-hearted guy from Season 1, yeah, he's now the villain of the piece. He verbally accosts the new equipment manager, shouts at various characters, takes credit for the team's victory, nurses resentments, holds grudges, and eventually explodes at Ted in a fiery rant. And by the end of the season, Nate has quit AFC Richmond entirely, joining a rival team and severing his connection with Ted in the process. And why does Nate feel that Ted has let him down? Because Ted didn't spend enough time with him. Yeah, while Ted was off dealing with his divorce and his crippling panic attacks in therapy, he didn't find enough time for Nate. In many fan reactions and in many think pieces online, Nate's character arc was seen as a colossal misstep by the writers, to the point where Jason Sudeikis texted actor Nick Mohammed to check in after the second season finale. But To hear the writers talk about it, Nate's character arc was planned from episode 1. It was all part of a grand master plan, a 3-season narrative arc. And so let's assume for a moment that season 2 of Ted Lasso wasn't a misstep, that it wasn't a mistake, and that the same folks who meticulously planned season 1 were responsible for what happened in season 2. Let's assume for a moment that what was done purposefully. Is there a way of reading Ted Lasso's second season that's not so cynical and that actually makes sense of some of these strange tonal choices and character changes? If nothing else, we owe it to the writers to give it a try, so let's do it. 4. The real narrative of Ted Lasso's second season. The very first thing we have to establish is that Season 2 of Ted Lasso is not trying to do the same thing that Season 1 was trying to do. Its goals are different. It is operating in a different mode. We're using a different language, using different narrative tools to achieve very different ends. The setup and payoff structure of Season 1 has to be abandoned here because, well, what is there to set up? Everyone's been introduced. Yeah, we can keep paying off Keely's mad rhyming skills, Coach Beard's chess experience, and Ted's inability to look the right way when crossing the street, but you'd be repeating these same storytelling and comedic beats that we've already had, and that's boring. Speaking of boring, we begin Season 2 with all of our characters in more or less good, stable places. Ted and Rebecca, who had been at odds throughout Season 1, they're buds. The team, they're getting along great. Keely and Roy, their relationship's good. Sure, Roy's getting used to his post-athletic life, and Jamie is also having some career issues, but yeah, they're all mostly good. The old conflicts and animosities that motivated the various plotlines of Season 1 have all been extinguished, and in any other show you'd expect them to be replaced with new ones, but what new plot lines are there for these characters who have achieved their goals? You would have to wind back the clock on their characters' development. You can't just have Ted regain his team's respect, or have Jamie relearn the importance of teamwork, or have Roy re-accept his age, not without just remaking Season 1. And after the success of Season 1, what challenges could realistically come along to pose difficulty for these guys? But oh no, guess what? The challenges are coming from inside the house. The lack of conflict, that's the primary obstacle this season. Yeah, Ted's the easiest character to spot this with. He avoids conflict in a way that borders on pathological, with his marriage with Coach Beard, and even when solving the Jamie-Roy conflict of Season 1. At the end of Season 1, Ted has crafted a world around him that's just the way he wants it, without conflict. Jamie and Roy, Keely and Rebecca, Rebecca and Higgins, Roy and Keely and Jamie, all is sorted and done with. When everybody in the world likes and respects one another, what are you left with in terms of storytelling possibilities? And why is this world perhaps a bad thing for the people who live in it? And this is where we get to Nate, who is our primary case study as to why conflict is necessary, and why the patron saint of anti-conflict, Ted Lasso, is secretly the villain of the whole piece. Let's go back a moment to Season 1 of Ted Lasso and chart the journey of Nate. Back when Nate was still the equipment manager and was still being abused by the members of the team, Ted saw that the members of AFC Richmond were bullying Nate, but Ted didn't step in. Instead, he let Nate be used as a prop to teach Roy that Roy needed to be a leader and to stand up for Nate. Contrast this with the time Roy and Jamie were fighting. In that instance, Ted forced the two to hash it out, and by the end of the evening, they're laughing and sharing a drink. Why didn't Ted encourage Nate and Jamie to talk out their issues? Maybe take Nate aside and encourage him to stand up for himself, to be more assertive, to demand more respect? That's an open question, because It's kind of a pattern with Ted, fixing Nate's problems for him instead of empowering Nate to do it himself. Heck, I think it's worth noting that Ted gives all the members of AFC Richmond individualized books to inspire them, but not Nate. When Nate's suit doesn't fit quite right, Ted solves the problem for him by buying Nate a new one. And because Roy stands up for Nate, Nate hasn't gained any self-respect. He just feels compelled to give Roy an awkward hug out of gratitude. And should it come as any surprise that a few episodes later, Nate gets shoved into the baggage area by the rest of the team? I mean, sure, it's an accident, it isn't bullying, but guess who doesn't stand up for himself there either? And in the next episode, the team discovers Nate is sleeping in the baggage area by choice, so that the bus won't leave without him. Any of these individual episodes is probably defensible, but when you stack them all together, it's pretty damning. There's also a weird pattern of calling Nate a kid. The actor who plays Nate was in his late 30s when season 1 was filmed. He's not a kid, he's a grown man. So when Nate begins verbally abusing the new kit man, Will, well, why wouldn't he? Nate never respected himself when he had that job. He never got respect when he had that job. So why would you respect this new guy? At the end of season 1, every single character has undergone a seismic character shift for the better. The Roy of episode 10 is no longer the Roy of episode 1. Ditto for Jamie, for Keely, for Rebecca, for Ted. But Nate is static. He has not grown. He's been promoted, but he has not grown. Incidentally, in that same episode, Ted asks Nate for an opinion, and Nate refuses to give it. Instead, he says this.
That you won't like my idea, and it makes you hate me. Then you fire me, then I have to move back in with my parents, and they'll be ashamed of me, and then everyone finds out back home, and laughs at me until my face melts off. Excuse me.
Well, at least he didn't stammer.
And when he finally gives Ted his suggestions, Ted drunkenly yells at him. Ted's lesson to Nate is to get Nate up in front of the team and, well, roast them. Nate's defining moment of growth comes when Ted teaches Nate to be a jackass to everyone. This behavior is why he gets his promotion, why the team finally respects him, and the first thing he does when he gets that promotion, be a jerk. And this is fine with Ted, because Ted's true superpower isn't solving problems, it's ignoring them. Or rather, it's getting problems and conflicts down to a place where they no longer seem like something that you have to address or tackle head on. And Nate's problems were always more easily ignored than those of other characters. Throughout his mentorship of Nate, Ted always takes the path of least resistance when it came to helping him, the path that addresses surface issues but never digs into anything deeper, the reason why Nate has certain feelings and the motivations behind his various actions. I said a moment ago that the second season of Ted Lasso starts with all of its characters in more or less good, stable positions, having achieved their goals and seemingly reached the end of their journeys. But they haven't. They just think that they have. The cracks are there, but they've been papered over. Take Rebecca, who spends much of this season in a holding pattern wondering what her next romantic move should be, or Roy Kent only rejoining AFC Richmond after 5 episodes of doing anything but making the obvious move. Ted avoids therapy for more than half of the season. Roy and Keely refuse to address their relationship issues until they become unignorable. Ted has seemingly taught everyone the skill of avoidance, and this cartoonish world that we're seeing, it's exaggerated and less realistic than the one that we saw in season 1 because it's not as real as the one that we saw in season 1. It's too bright and shiny and simplistic. It's not raw and real. It's disguising the issues that are present but that are being ignored. Season 1 episodes have shorter runtimes and more tightly written scripts. Well, of course they do, because they didn't have characters who were systematically avoiding conflict and trying not to take difficult actions. This leads us to 5. Conclusion. Form follows function, and the function of Season 2 is different than the function of Season 1. What began as a show about embracing optimism in the face of cynicism transformed into a show about embracing denial in the face of trauma, growth, and difficult choices. Season 1 showed us a harsh, oftentimes cruel world that could be conquered with a toothy grin and a folksy saying, but Season 2 illustrates the limitations of that approach to the world, the dangers of becoming too complacent, so comfortable that you go to extreme lengths to avoid discomfort. At the end of Season 2, the fractures had formed, and the dam holding back various problems was beginning to break. Nate's villainous turn was the most visible and the most surprising, but it was part of a larger whole. Because Season 2 does tell a coherent story, it's just a story that we don't have the resolution of yet. My prediction is this. Ted Lasso's upcoming 3rd season is going to unify everything. The writers have gone on record time and again claiming that this whole show is a 3-act story and that everything was charted out well in advance. The negative reaction to Season 2, I think, has less to do with its quality than to the fact that it was doing new things in a new way and that we don't yet know how this puzzle piece fits into the whole. At least that's my opinion. Let me know if it made sense to you, and if you'd like to see more overlong video essays about topics as diverse as the Brady Bunch and ALF. Feel free to subscribe too. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.